Hello there. Evening. I haven't made a video for a while, so I figured I would. And the topic is going to be about, I got banned on Facebook. And for most people, it's no big deal. Who cares? Some people would create another account. Some people would go, I don't need Facebook, and, would go about their business. And I'm not saying that I need Facebook, but there are consequences, of course, against me for me not being on Facebook. Um, the thing is, I was being talked to in a very particular manner on the internet service, and I you don't ever really get used to being talked to like that, but it is you begin to understand it, and in some ways it's better to be talked to that way than it may do in the physical world. The digital world is a real place, and what I had seen um, on Facebook was not normal. There was a lot of things that I didn't go looking for. That you know, the way they talk, they structure their arguments, their topics in a way that gives them the complete advantage. But after you observe it for a while, you're able to decipher exactly what it is. And to be honest with you, Facebook is crawling with bureaucrats. They're trying to extract answers from you, even if there's no basis for them to think that way, just so that it can, dribble it down on their database saying that you said this at a certain time or whatever. And although sometimes I wasn't as elegant as I'd like to be, because I have this thing where I like to have a few beverages and go on the internet, and that should be an enjoyable experience. But, you know, people and their beliefs, their opinions, and that sort of stuff, it is definitely a factor. Um, like when it would pick topics, they would show themselves as, in my opinion, being very unreasonable. Like the few groups that I did join up with, because they were there, were Pierre Polyev ones, and I expected conversation about Pierre Polyev as one might would believe, but nope. They would pick whatever the current event was, even if it wasn't a Canadian one, and that would be the topic, and then it would be an OCD, this is the current events, it has nothing to do with Polyev. Um, you know, I'm not even sure if Polyev made a statement about, the Charlie Kirk assassination. I have my theories on that whole thing, it was very sad, of course, if it's true, but I don't know if I believe that actually. There's some circumstantial evidence that would suggest that it is not. But I would never mock the man. Someone can have different opinions than you, but that's, not a reason for extreme behavior, such as his would-be assassin, Tyler Robinson, did. Um, anyway, the subject of, the castle law that they got in the States, I don't know the fine detail. I know the broad strokes of it, but that's about it. Doesn't really apply here in Canada, but I have heard of examples of where it's a blatantly bad law. Um, I don't have exact details, so I won't give examples of where I've heard where it's been really bad. But anyway, I figured I gave reasonable responses to a topic they picked, and they were giving answers themselves that were very unreasonable answers, and they would often tie in other aspects to certain things that made it sound crazy. And, it wasn't what I said, it's what I didn't say. What I didn't say pissed them off because they wanted me to say, things that were either incorrect or something mentally ill, or just someone who's confused on what is being asked upon them. And, one of the statements I made, since I don't have Facebook, since I got banned, I don't have the direct thing for most of it. I saved a few by doing snapshots on my phone, but I don't have that much. Don't need it. But, one example would be where I was being reasonable was the question of what can you do as far as pertaining to the castle law and all that. I said if anyone shoots anybody for any reason, they should get a psychiatric assessment. And that's very true. It doesn't matter if you're in the army fighting a war or somewhere off in another country. It doesn't matter if you're the burglar at, I don't know, Wendy's or something. Doesn't matter if there's someone breaking into your house. If somebody shoots somebody, afterwards they have to have a psychiatric assessment. The psychiatrist has to look into their head and figure out where they are. And if they're not in a place that's appropriate, then, things have to be done. But if they are in the right, then I don't know where it goes from there. But that would be considered a reasonable answer. The internet on Facebook did not like that at all. I don't think they can use that against me. I think that was a very fair statement to make. And there were other examples too. I can't exactly recall them off of the top of my head. But when you get bureaucrats just trying to really grind in, answers out of someone that they artificially created a, sort of a scenario where they think that I'm seeking their approval, so I'll say the kind of things they want me to say. No, not to a bunch of losers on Facebook or anyone. It's a bit creepy, and you go, well, it's the World Wide Web, right? Well, yes, but there are a lot of goons that are locals that, they have access to my internet servers and all that. They're bureaucrats. They know it. They know where I live, as they do with anyone on the internet. They know where you live. They know a lot about you. You have no idea what information they have about you. So when I say local, Metro Vancouver area, there'll be roundabouts in there. But anyway, since I've been banned from Facebook, and I said some things that were, in my opinion, not wrong. But some people, it's controversial, I really enjoy learning about history, World War II specifically, World War I, and more recent wars and stuff like that. I like good music, and my style of what I consider acceptable is going to be different from other people, and other people are going to get offended because they look at it and see things differently. Like, for example, this could be applied to anything. You like hockey, for example, right? It's a normal thing to like. Well, hockey has a dark history to it. A little bit of one, anyway. I don't have to go into the details about the concussions, the enforcer, suicides and that sort of stuff. I don't need to talk about any of that, but there are some people who have a legitimate beef, as one would say, with professional sports. They are a sports entertainment. They are a money-making juggernaut, and sometimes they don't have the best interests of people whom inadvertently get thrown under the bus. But I like the Chicago Blackhawks. I like the Florida Panthers. I like teams that win, that are successful, that are entertaining. And some people don't. They have their reasons, and from their perspective, they're not wrong. But if they, talk to me about it, I will explain to them my position on it, and I will explain to them, that they don't have the right to tell me that I can't enjoy the sport. So that's the kind of stuff I would place on my Facebook. Is hockey, World War II, metal music. And that sorts. And there are some people who just don't like that type of white guy. They really dislike that type of white guy. And it's like, you don't even have to have done anything. Like on the internet, if you align yourself, somehow it makes you guilty of what other like-minded people have done, even if you wouldn't have done those things yourself. Like, I believe the algorithm, it's a more complicated word than some people think. Some people think it's like, oh, if you are looking up shoes, you're going to get more shoe advertisements. Well, yes, that's true, but I think part of it also is they go, a man in his late 30s, Caucasian, likes hockey, likes metal music. Here's things that other people in his demographic like, and therefore, they can use examples from people that, may be different. They may be living in the States. They may be living in Europe. And in their demographic will be different than mine. So they will like things that I may not like. I will like things that they may not like. Just because they're late 30s, white Caucasian male, and maybe they like sports or something I like, doesn't mean I'm going to like everything that they like. And I think that is part of algorithm. So, not that any of the topics I put up ever got into discussion on Facebook. Facebook always chose what the discussion was going to be about, and they had their own rebuttals and things like this. But the problem is they sounded like batshit crazy a lot of the times. Like, a lot of the times they were saying, oh, this is a funny page, ha ha ha, this is fun. No, it's not. That's not what it is at all. You have to see, it for yourselves to really understand it. I'm, some would say would be vulnerable on somewhere like Facebook. I don't entirely agree with that, but, I lived in imposed isolation. I am an involuntary celibate. I'm an involuntary celibate because I cannot score a woman. It is not because I think of anything else, like the Charlie Kirk assassination or anything like that. I do not wish to emulate anything like that. Although, do not look on Wikipedia because they will say that's what it means. And anybody can be an involuntary celibate in this day and age with women, some women being offended like they are. And then there are men out there that like the idea of ridiculing a man because he cannot score a chick. There's very few things more embarrassing in this world than not being able to score a chick. They're actually not that hard to score, actually. For me, right now, it's kind of impossible, but in reality, it's not that hard at all. Getting into where the problem is here is, yes, people say things on the internet and they will take things out of context. Like, I've been wearing Make America Great hats for, years now. And, I'm not ashamed that I, had pictures of myself wearing Make America Great hat. Um, I really felt like, I do feel like Donald Trump is a good president. And this is me saying this from Canada. You don't see many, I don't see anybody else wearing a Make America Great hat. I do know a few people that have them though, but I don't see them wearing it. And, with tariffs and all that looming, one could construe that it wouldn't be wise to wear one in public, but I go ahead and do anyway. Because I got this sense, almost this is where the benefit of having something like Facebook would have been, even though it's just talking a bunch of trash and trying to extract answers out of me that aren't correct, and it's more than probably true that there are bureaucrats behind it. I almost had this sense of, I'm living in my bubble and no one's allowed to enter my bubble. So I didn't get used to that, but I accepted it as something that is probably true. And, now that Facebook, I no longer have access to it, I'm concerned that in the physical world, the same mentality of, presenting a serious, but in a kind of a crazy kind of tone, atmosphere is going to come to me in the physical world. Now that the digital world has been put to the side, at least on that aspect, this is why I'm making this video on YouTube, I have concerns that someone, perhaps a bureaucrat, may try something in the physical world, and I'm not at all used to that. I'm used to a very structured life where there are certain things expected. Like when you're in the workplace, you're expected to do work. At home, you're expected to behave a certain way. And the only reason I gravitated towards Facebook in the first place, especially with the way they were talking, is because I was missing a social element in my day-to-day life, which did impact my mental health. It would do anybody. And, I have other factors for being stressed out, like this, for example. Anybody could be watching this. Where it's very concerning. And, I like to drink alcohol. Some people really hate alcohol and, just want to destroy it. And I think that's part of the reason why the government liquor stores are on strike. I think that's part of it. I think the money is one thing, but also there's something else at work here, because they closed all those liquor stores or beer stores in Ontario, and there's something coming about this, and I'm not sure I like it. But anyway, I don't relish the idea of being in a somewhat crazy scenario and then, me being forced to make a decision that, it's a little more something that's going to elevate your heart rate. I can give an example of something that was a crazy scenario that I was in a few years ago. I even told my doctor about it, as a matter of fact. And, okay, I'll tell you what it is. I was on the Canada line, and, I was about to get off of it. And so I'm heading to the exit doors. And there was a guy pacing backwards and forwards there. And, I'm not sure how many people were around me, but I was definitely, I usually like to make good pace so that I catch the bus wherever I'm going, or, I'm someone who, doesn't slowly walk anywhere. That's just my style. But anyway, this guy was pacing across from backwards and forwards from the exits on the trains, and he starts charging at me not running, charging. He was an older fellow, burly. So even though he had, gray white beard, from what I recall, gray hair and whatnot, he looked as though he could actually still kind of hold his own. Old man strength, some would say. But anyway, he charged at me, and he reeked of cigarettes, like fresh cigarettes. So I don't know if he smoked 20 of them before he decided he came up with this idea of what he was going to do. But he comes charging up to me, and he starts at the top of his lungs shouting, "Pedophile, pedophile, 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 pedophile." And obviously you don't want to be near anyone doing something like that. But I went, that's it. I'm evading this guy. I'm tapping out, and he's following along, and he didn't do anything other than that, and I left him there, and that was that. And I chalk it up to, okay, he is no worse than a aggressive panhandler or something. He didn't do anything belligerent. Well, I guess shouting at the top of his lungs could be considered belligerent, but the point is that nothing physical happened. But I don't know what he wanted me to do, but obviously I didn't do it. I wouldn't want him turning around and saying, well, he's the one who started it, blah, 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 and then, I get in trouble for something he did, when that's not what happened. But you have to be concerned that what if bureaucrats decide they choose to believe someone like that over someone like myself? What if they want to believe that? That enables them, that gives them the ability to go, oh, well, maybe we have to, delve a little bit deeper into Ryan's psyche on this. And it's like, no, there's no story here. I left, and you know what? He probably went, this is stupid, and he went about his business somewhere else. That's probably what happened. But I do not want to be in a scenario like anything like that again. Yeah, now that I'm not on Facebook and I don't have the crazy Facebook people talking to me, like I said about that shield, where it felt like I was in my own bubble, and the advantage to being in the bubble was that no one else was allowed in the bubble. And perhaps I don't have that anymore, because the bureaucrats that were asking me those type of questions, they don't want to stop asking those type of questions. No, 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 no. I just had made it clear on Facebook that I knew who they were. Almost every time I got into an argument with someone on Facebook, I called them a bureaucrat. And then I'd ask them, are you a bureaucrat? And most of the time, they would put up this little emoji that, was indicating they were laughing. They weren't laughing. Well, they could have been. But that was what they were trying to put, trying to get me to think, oh, they're laughing at me. And they were a little bit, but that's also a disguise of what, it's like a vague description of what they're thinking. They could have been thinking anything, and more than likely because I was calling them a bureaucrat and they couldn't give me a straight answer, they weren't liking it. And, they said a lot of stupid shit on Facebook. They were heavily in favor of the castle, your house is your castle kind of law. Maybe there's some elements to that kind of make sense, but, there are obviously some problems with that law, and you can't take an American law and put it in Canada and have it, fit like a puzzle piece. It's not going to work that way. So there were people who had radical opinions on that. Not me, though. I had what I considered a fairly normal opinion on it. And It's a very confusing subject. Um, like, you just don't know what kind of crazy people are out there. And, you don't know what they're going through or what they're thinking, and they have their own stories. But you do have to respond appropriately when you see crazy shit out there. And, I'm just not convinced that certain things are particularly safe. I haven't gotten anything convincing out of that. And the one person who I have been talking to, well, I've talked to a few people actually, but the person I talked to the most about my concerns about my Facebook being deleted, uh, just dismissal. And it's like, well, you're not providing any evidence by just being dismissive. I can pitch examples of where I know someone is being a bit off. Because another aspect to it is something is not crazy, but if interpreted wrong, they can be seen as crazy. And I have, I believe, made a YouTube video about this where I talked about sound bites. And my understanding of what that is if you're walking past someone, um, just some random person, and maybe they're talking on their phone or they're talking to someone else, and they say something as you draw ear level, so you hear what they said, and maybe you don't hear anything else that they said, and somehow it could be applied to you, or it could be an insult, or it could be anything, and you're left going, now did they say that or not? Bureaucrats, mental health professionals especially, like to say that's you having an auditory hallucination. It's like, no, it isn't. I know what I heard. And sometimes people have a way of saying that, their soundbite, so that it puts that thought into someone's head. Like, for example, one person had said they should be forced to move. And, I'm looking at the crazy scenarios I have to live my life through, and I'm going, now, did they mean that to us? So, what? I took the initiative. I turned around and said, are you a bureaucrat? And the woman said no. But the woman she was talking to didn't say anything. So, that to me is a piece of evidence that they had used a soundbite on me. Tried to evoke some kind of emotion. But it's like, no, we pay our bills. Fuck you. We're gonna continue to live here. If you were applying something to me, it's just, it's a really dirty way of talking to someone, and I don't approve of it. I think that it's unreasonable. And there were other examples too. And these were coming about in the first 24 hours of me being kicked off of Facebook. And, I think in making this video and continuing to make videos, I think that'll alleviate some of that. Because, might be a few days, few weeks, few months, maybe even a few years, although I highly doubt they're that patient, that they may start to, be more active in a bad sort of way in my immediate physical surrounding, trying to evoke responses from me, trying to get under my skin, one might say. And I don't like scenarios like that. And sometimes it can be a team effort. Like, and people go, oh, no, that would cost money, and blah, blah, blah. No, it doesn't. It's the exact same as if my boss told me, go work the bananas. That's part of my job, go work the bananas. But for bureaucrats, go and say this in front of this person, and then deny you had anything to do with it if they ask you about it. That is part of their job. That doesn't cost any more money. It may cost some of their time, but if they're that committed, which I think I see on the internet, on Facebook in particular, it showing up in the physical world, could be a bit of a problem. If mental health is supposed to treat patients and make them well, I am not seeing much evidence of that from mental health. They took away my right to score with women. They forced me to be a social isolate. I've made many videos about the various pains physical pains I have to feel all the time. Like, I never feel 100%, and that's 100% is the medications. Guaranteed, it is. There's no arguing about it. They're doing everything to create scenarios that promote mental unwellness. They don't want patients to recover. They don't want them to be well. They want them to be obedient. They want them to be good patients. Kind of like that movie with Clint Eastwood, Escape from Alcatraz. They don't try to create good people. They try to create good prisoners. It's a similar but different kind of mentality. And, it just enables mental health, in particular the organization, to, be abusive and get away with it. For now. It won't always get away with it. And the people who said the trashy things about me and said it in such a way to bureaucrats that it was like music to their ears, or something they could at least accept at very least, which would be considered slanderous, like very, very slanderous, as I bet, I've been a patient of mental health. Well, I was discharged a number of years ago, but I still take their medication because I have to, because if I don't, it's physically very painful for me. It's painful to take it, but it's even more painful not to. So I guess you could look at it as I've been a patient for 15 years. I bet the people who originally said nasty things to me, to the mental health organization, if they looked back at what they said, they would feel like complete and total retards. Because that's just, the nature of being a human, is that if you say something 10 years, and then you're looking at it 10 years hindsight, you're going to go, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have said that, or maybe I was wrong about that, or, maybe I could have worded it better, or anything like that. Any person is going to be like that. And what I think is that mental health just does not have the evidence to come after me. So they're trying to manufacture it. They're trying to create it out of nowhere. So they're creating scenarios that justify what they're doing. Or at least in their mind, that what they're doing. But they're not getting they're getting reasonable answers out of me, but they're not getting the unreasonable ones, which is what they need to justify everything that they've done. So yes, bureaucracies do not like to spend an extra dollar on anything if they don't have to, because they're all a bunch of money squeezing bastards and bitches. But if they are concerned, like someone like me, who go, litigation, what have you been saying about me? Is any of this true? Is it even close to being true? Then that's when they start spending money trying to go, we got to make sure we can't get sued. Then that's when they really start to freak out. Um, you know, nobody wants to get sued, and they most certainly do not. And in my opinion, I've done nothing wrong. They don't like that, but I'm not going to give them the satisfaction. So, to sum up this video, because I've been talking about this for well over 30 minutes now, is that I'll be watching you people, because I don't trust you for shit. And on a final remark, the last meme I saw on Facebook before I got kicked off was that of Alf, and across from him was the confused dinner cat. And I assumed that that cat was supposed to be sarcastic in nature. Every time I'd seen it, and it was a fairly common meme, he was always being sarcastic, but he's kind of like backing off, going, "Oh shit." And then there's Alf, who I barely remembered. Like, I actually probably remember him from the Simpsons episode, the reference from him from the Simpsons episode where Bart sold his soul, a bit better. But I did remember that he ate cats, and I really like cats. That's part of the reason why I like the Florida Panthers, is because as a young person, I really like cats. I still like cats. And that was the reason why I like the Florida Panthers. And then some Canuck players got traded there, and we got Luongo, and then they won a Stanley Cup, and yeah, I like the Florida Panthers. So, from a metaphorical point of view, what if I'm the cat, and the alien Alf is a psychiatrist, and he benefits from something bad happening to me, like me being thrown back into the mental health system full blown? Possibility? Yes. But, there'll be an opportunity. I've already got some ideas in my head for the kind of memes I'm going to say about Alf. That's a character who's not going to have a new TV show, I can promise you that. And is not going to get another movie. Or if it even had a movie, I don't know that. Maybe, maybe not. And, I think there's a lot of people out there that dislike cats, and it's an irrational stance on them. I mean, yes, they're responsible for extinctions on other continents, particularly of bird and small mammalians, but so was mankind. And so are dogs, actually. Dogs actually destroyed quite a number of species as well. And I don't hate on dogs. They've been our companions for thousands of years, and cats have also been our companions for thousands of years. They're our power animals. But, there's some people out there, particularly the Chinese, who have their opinions on those animals, and I don't agree with them. And there are also some white people who do not care for cats or anything of the sort, because they're of the dumbass dog owner variety. Not very intelligent people from what I know. I have no reason to dislike dogs, and I don't, but some dog owners are, for the English definition of what a cunt is, it's not a sexual thing, it's an insult. Calling someone a cunt usually means they're an idiot, an asshole, and a bunch of other things. It's usually what it means. And that is what one of those old style dog owners is. Because, Alf could be construed as a dog or a coyote or something. And the thing is, we don't have coyotes in my area, and there's a reason for that, because there's a lot of small children around. You can never trust a coyote around small children. You just can't. And therefore my cats are safe from that particular problem. I'll be paying attention to things, and I really despise Alf, so I do not, I'm not going to, put up with that. That's not what's happening. Anyway, I'll talk to you people later. Have a good one, and yeah.